So with that being said, let's move on to another full goofy. This time it's Pete Hegseth. Y'all know Pete Hegseth. He's made news. He's all kinds of goofy as well. But we're gonna specifically talk about his double standard around tattoos. Well, not his double standard because he ain't necessarily doing it, but the Trump administration's double standard around tattoos. But first, we cannot talk about Pete Hegseth without talking about Signal. This is the goofball that's texting war plans and Signal group chats. And there was the one where he invited Jeff Goldberg, the editor at the Atlantic, and that was a whole thing, which should have meant that he got excused. There should have been some sort of accountability for that. There was not. But now we find out that my man is over here doing the same shit, except for with his lawyer and wife. This is the incompetence of whiteness, y'all. And maybe it's not even incompetence, it's just the audacity, right? It's just the audacity. And it's the way that whiteness keeps us from being our best selves, or at least from the world from seeing our worst selves. This dude is Ivy League. You're supposed to be the best of the best, and I can't stand that he's from Minnesota. And my Minnesota people, that goofball's from Forest Lake. So it's not at all surprising where he's at in his politics, right? But he's a goofball, and he's Princeton. He went to Princeton in Ivy League, supposed to be creme de la creme, top shelf, you dig? All of those things. And this is the type of work product. This is the type of deliverables. These are the outcomes that you get when you reward not only mediocrity, but trash. This dude is a goofball. I guarantee you he shouldn't have passed the class. This dude is an outright goofball, incapable. He's never been held to a standard of basic ability to exist as a human, let alone have this level of responsibility. But he'll be the first one to scream about some DEI shit and some how people lowering the bar and all that. His whole life, the bar's been removed, right? He been, when you talk about lowering the bar, he ain't even know where the bar is because it's just been gone. That's how low it is. He just walks and it's done. He ain't never had a bar in his life, right? So there's that about Pete Hegseth. But at the same time, this is what the Trump administration loves, this type of dude. They love these type of white people. They love them some Jeff Langs. They love them some Pete Hegseth. They love them some Stephen Millers, some Russell Voigts, all these subpar, mediocre shells of men, shells of decent humans who ain't got any sort of, it's like the Grinch, their heart's all too small and all that. That's what they are, right? They're vampires. This is what whiteness is. We're going to stick on that sinners theme. They're vampires. But the Trump administration loves them. And they're because whiteness got us so like this in blinders, y'all. So in blinders that they don't even see their double standards. Now, and that's being generous. In a generous analysis, they don't see the double standards. In reality, they might see them and they just don't care. Here's my thing. I don't care which one of those it is. Not at all, not even a little bit, because either way, the outcome is the same. You're perpetuating division, disease, low expectations. Just the worst of humanity is perpetuated through whiteness, particularly when whiteness colludes with some toxic masculinity, which is the Trump administration dumpster fire that it is. And so we all know that Trump is invoking the Colonial Alien Enemies Act to deport a bunch of people that mainly from Venezuela, sending them to CICAT in El Salvador. The most talked about case is probably the Kilmar case. Why am I spacing? Hold on. Wow, I'm spacing on his last name. Albrego Garcia. Kilmar Albrego Garcia. Whew. I had a moment there. It's been a long day, y'all. And so they're talking about his tattoos, right? They even released the little thing where they showed his knuckle tattoos, and they were like MS-13 on some nonsense, some goofy bullshit, right? The whole time they got this dude. This is Pete Hegseth and his tattoos. These are known white nationalist symbols, y'all. These are known white nationalist symbols, and he is there showing them off, right? He is showing them off. It's wild to me that this is where we are at. And then it's not, because this is where we have always been, right? This level of hypocrisy, this level of an inability, this level of an inability to reflect on how we show up is just what America is made for, right? We loud and elevate goofballs like Thomas Jefferson, talk about how enlightened they are, how forward thinking they are. We, the founding fathers and all that. And it's a little footnote that he had slaves and that he was raping Sally Hemings and had kids by her, multiple kids by her, right? That contradiction is fundamental to America. It is who America is. And Pete Hegseth demonstrates that in our modern times. Look at this. These are all white nationalist symbols, right? These are all white nationalist symbols. And there's a bunch of there's a bunch of think pieces out there that go into it. Those are the 5 crosses, things like that. But and there might be some sort of rationales, but this one on his bicep, I want to zone in on right here. Okay. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but Deus Vult across his bicep, it means God wills it. It's the command to go do something. And it is tied back to the Crusades. And it's the belief in the Christian God that it was their duty to go take over. It was conquerors. It was colonialists. It is fundamentally the mindset that whiteness is based in, that it is white men's duty to go conquer, to be conquerors, right? And it is not insignificant that this man has that, nor that he is the Secretary of Defense, that he is in charge of the military, that he has military background. This is what they've always wanted to do. They have always wanted to take over. They believe that the goal of whiteness is to take over. It is to go conquer. This is Richard Spencer, right? This is a white nationalist belief. They're unabashed in it. And the only difference between Pete Hegseth and a David Duke is that Pete Hegseth has realized you got to finesse the systems a little bit. You got to get in there, because at one point in time, it was not politically acceptable to be an open white nationalist. That is shifting. I want to be very clear. That is shifting. It is openly acceptable to say you want white men out here running the world, that you need white people to run the world. These people are not only is it acceptable, they're getting elevated within the Trump administration. And Pete Hegseth demonstrates that completely. These demonstrate that completely, right? And so it's super important. It's super important that we understand that. What do we do? How do we connect around this? Y'all, Pete Hegseth is hurting, just like all white men are hurting who haven't figured this out. But what we do is we protect people from that, right? One of the things in restoration is you got to stop harm from happening. And it's not harmful to tell the people who are causing harm to knock it off and to do what you got to do to stand in the breach of that and say no. And I'm talking especially to other white men right now, people who look like me and got a little bit of heart in them and that don't think this is acceptable. It is on us to be the loudest voices right now, because we're the safest. And I notice I'm not saying we're safe. We are the safest. I got a case. I got all that because I stood up to a white nationalist that was threatening some kids, right? Y'all, if you know me, you know about that. If you don't, holler, and we could talk about it. But we got to put something on the line and we are the safest. It is up to us to stand in front of Pete Hegseth and be like, nah, bro, it's not going down. Not while I'm around. Not while I'm connected to these communities. Not while I care about the type of world that I live in, the type of country that I'm in. I'm not a patriotic dude, mainly because our patriotism is wishy-washy. It's like this, right? What are we patriotic about? We make America great again, or we gonna make America great for the first time because we understand history? These are the questions that we have to have, and we got to have strong answers right now. And white men, we need to pick a side, and we need to be open about it. And if you aren't openly about it, if you aren't openly telling Pete Hegseth, I ain't got no time, energy, or nothing for you, and you shouldn't be front and center in these things, then you've picked a side. Then you've picked a side, my guy. You've picked a side. You can't, there's no like just get yours and move on and all that. And I know the world tells you that you're weak, and that we haven't gone to therapy, we haven't healed, so we don't have a real sense of self in order to stand in this. But we better figure it out real quick, because it is not for play. Okay, it is not for play. Which brings me to our third and final story.